Welcome to the Lair, a place where interesting people you may know tell you things you didn't. So grab a chair and your favorite vice and get comfortable. There are no rules in the Lair, but there is Laura Babcock. You know her from TV, and she is not into media monogamy. Let's find out who else is in the Lair.
So welcome to the Lair, Fred. It's great to have you here. You are the third mayor in the Lair. We never intended it to be a host for mayors, but it just, well, you know what? You know, Bob Wade is around.
Bob Morrow.
So is Bob Morrow. Do you know what? I'd love to talk to Bob Morrow because when we did that 100th anniversary, you remember the United Way Gala where you had your great roast.
Yeah.
That was
Yes,
great.
I remember. Yeah. Somebody called me a bigot, actually. That came up earlier.
They did. Yeah, they did. We in the pre-show we were
Something
talking
about an Italian joke.
Well, yeah, some crack about the Sopranos and Larry Diani and something that
I
cooled the
thought it
room
was
a little
funny.
bit.
I thought it was funny. It was a roast.
Do you know what the best line of it all was, though? When Jack McDonald, do you remember the crack he made in response to that? When you said, I look forward to joining this, whatever you called it, esteemed group of former mayors, and Jack said something to the effect of, the sooner the better, Fred, or something.
Be forward before you know it.
So rest in peace, Jack. Jack McDonald was terrific. That was a fine moment for him.
Don't we all miss him?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I had a love-hate relationship with Jack because he always told me off every time I saw him, and then he left the session with something sweet. He's such an amazing guy.
He was so dapper, and every time I ever talked to him, he would always start. He'd say, "How you doing?" You know, just casual, and he'd always say, "Any day I'm on this side of the ground is a good one, Laura." I loved his attitude right down to the end.
And
he was
always
a terrific
be
guy.
of good cheer.
Yeah.
Frank, would you sign on to name the Red Hill Valley Expressway the Jack McDonald Expressway?
Nice question.
No, it's the right.
It's a good question.
You know what?
That's his baby. He was a great
It is his
Hamiltonian
baby.
who has
Yeah.
left us.
Yeah, he did love that thing.
Yeah, I could go there. Yeah, I mean, I haven't put a whole lot of thought in it. I mean, I think it's awkward enough that we've got that entire highway with two names on it,
Yeah, for
which
sure.
it makes me kind of shudder a little. I thought they would have called the whole thing the Lincoln-Alexander Expressway from one end to the other, but we ended up
if
with
they
two
don't,
names.
it's an opportunity to honor
But
Jack.
Jack McDonald, yeah, why not?
Well,
Why not?
he was, he did stake a claim on that debate, that long-ranging debate, an unpopular claim, right? And while a lot of people still might not like him for that and other things that he was about, the guy had his principles when it came to that road.
Well, I didn't live too far from there when they were actually putting in the sewer pipes, and Jack McDonald was a councillor then, and I remember him talking about it. This is going back to like the early 70s or late 60s even. And I used to go down there and play on the pipes before they put them in. So hopping down the valley, I mean, that was our playground, right, the Red Hill Valley. So I always had kind of a difficult time with the issue.
I bet.
Supportive of the road,
Yeah.
but, worried about the kind of damage and harm. And you know what, it's ended up rather spectacular, actually.
Well, and coming from an urban development expert as you are now with your new gig, that means something, right? For the city, we got it right as far as we could with that kind of a project.
Well, the oddity is that, there's always this kind of great argument that if you're for urban, public transportation or LRT, we can weigh into LRT.
Oh, we
It's
will.
a nice segue for me. And, that you really don't care about roads.
Yeah.
And, believe me, you have to care about roads in this city and every city that is on the planet today because it's the majority way that people move around, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But public transportation is more about being even more efficient down the road. And for Hamilton, the bigger issue is getting economic development and development around the corridor where you're going to put the LRT, which is, I think, still makes sense for the B line to be the one. But then it's mostly about creating more density and more commercial opportunity and more growth and more tax base. That is the greater benefit for LRT. Yes, you move more people. That's extremely important. Yes, we need to have roads. That's also important. But cost-effective, environmentally sound LRT is a really, really critical issue for the city.
And it, as you said, it creates those sort of kind of a commercial note as it goes. People will build along it. People will, it creates that density. I remember.
Yeah, which they won't do on a bus line.
No.
I mean, it doesn't have the same impact or effect.
Not
and
at
when we
all.
went and toured, Charlottetown, North Carolina, and Portland, and places where they have LRT, and now we can look down the road to Kitchener-Waterloo area that they're putting it in. Their major theme is, yes, it's going to cost us less money overall. You don't have to replace that rail line every 20 years. But it's going to lead to enhanced growth and density and more inner city development that we want to have happen. And Hamilton surely needs that. Certainly along the Beeline.
Credence to we're a north-south city as opposed to an east-west one?
Well, we're not yet a north-south city. I think that's certainly an aspiration. I think we want to develop the James Street corridor and get up the hill and on the mountain. And maybe if we'd have put a stadium in that kind of northern area, it would have enhanced that notion a little better and kind of encouraged the development along James. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. What's that?
How do you really feel about the stadium?
No, I think Iverwood Stadium is crazy. If you look at the potential benefits of having a waterfront stadium at that potential remediation site, the brownfield site, and a redevelopment opportunity at the Iverwood site, which is all about residential commercial renewal, and the connection to the GO train that, by the way, was coming anyway. It's not a new thing. It was in the docket and ready to go.
That.
And the enhancement to not only the downtown and the waterfront area, but the whole corridor. That was a super huge opportunity to do multiple things. Yeah. All we're doing now is replacing a stadium. I think it's a sad tragedy for the city, but
last time that you and I really had a conversation was after your Frost event, the roast for you, which let me just declare, because everyone thinks that I work for everybody that I ever talk to, was not working for you, did it for free. It was more of a building a history for the city thing. No, I'm not saying that so you thank me. I'm saying it so that the 16 emails I'm going to get accusing me of working for you, I'm getting ahead of them.
You've never worked for me.
I have not.
I'll clear that up.
Thank you. So my point being that last time we really talked was after that event. But I recall at that event, one of the funniest speeches of the night was when Mark Chamberlain kind of went apeshit about the whole stadium. Oh. He turned his roast to you into this, I'm bitter, it turned out this way. And he made a very cogent argument. And I remember thinking, if we had had that argument earlier in the discussion, it might have swayed.
Yeah, you know what? I think about it often. Like, why didn't it kind of get across the bar and the hurdle? I think the Tiger Cats certainly put fear in the minds of many, councillors in particular, and that was when the emotions start to take over. That's a tough thing to overcome. And I was trying to work logically in terms of what are the benefits.
When you and Scott Mitchell got into your your reported throwdown at the Hamilton Club,
it was a casual conversation just like this. No.
So but we've been to the club. Yeah. Actually, we've got the president of the Hamilton Club in our studio audience right now, Graham Crawford, which I find kind of, I love it when these things line up. But the Hamilton Club, what's that? Yeah, you had to hire a security guard after that mess, eh? Because really,
would have killed you.
The Hamilton Club, for our listeners who may have not, graced its grand old halls, is not the place where people talk above a whisper. I mean, really, Graham, like everybody whispers, right? It's the club. It's all plush and quiet, and there's all these old traditions. So the fact that you and Scott got into this alleged yelling match at the club, to me, the environment, the juxtaposition of the fight and the environment said how whacked that Pan Am debate was, that it would bring that kind of vitriol into a place like the Hamilton Club.
Well, it just turned out that way. I just finished doing a presentation on LRT and why I thought it was important at the Hamilton Club, and so he was there, and we promised we'd talk, and it was just a convenient time to go and have at it. And I don't think we accomplished anything, quite frankly. His position didn't change, nor did mine.
But you seem like a pretty reasonable guy. I mean, I know you made the joke about being stubborn because you're Dutch at the thing. That also got you in trouble. People didn't like that either. Stay away from the ethnic cracks, Fred, I'm just saying.
Okay. I'm not saying anything about any ethnicity today at all.
But
I'm not really stubborn, actually.
But
at least
you
I
said
don't
that
think
about
so.
yourself, right? But I'm just saying you've always seemed quite reasonable to me. And I don't know Scott Mitchell very well at all. But, it just, I think, was more of just a sign of how out of control that Pan Am debate had become. It became you're going to give up on the Ticats, lose your team, lose this Hamilton Brown brand, or you're going to try to be part of the future development and believe in the downtown. Like the decision lines on that became so. I can't remember another time other than maybe the Peggygate scandal this past holiday, where my neighbors want to come across the street and talk local politics with me.
It was an emotional issue, and it didn't need to be.
It was just a building. How did it get so emotional?
Well, when you have the owner of the Tiger Cats and Mr. Mitchell say there's no possible way we'll play at that location without really a substantial and definable reasons as to why not, then you get put in a pretty awkward position. And I think council had to decide, and I had to decide, what our best bet would be in terms of the city. They were interested in what was best for the Tiger Cats, and I understand that divide. They obviously were clever enough to raise the argument in the community, and to the point where people were leaning on councillors to kind of do what the Tiger Cats wanted to do. Right. I thought it was a city issue. Now, when you have a team that doesn't pay a dime to play, we foot the bill for the stadium. We absolutely own the stadium. Then I think the taxpayer and council has a bit more to say than we'll do whatever the Tiger Cats want us to do.
So it's just the way that they squeezed every orange and
I think they created a scenario that made it very, very difficult.
City Hall on it, though.
Yeah.
What's that?
They outmaneuvered City Hall.
Yeah, I think they did. Absolutely. I'd have to admit, in hindsight, I don't know how I could have outmaneuvered them. Quite frankly,
Fair enough.
I had a lot of folks. I had a lot of folks holding my coat while I had a good fight.
Well,
so they were telling me in the background they were supportive on council, and then when it came time to decide things, they went a different way.
Well, but even Fred, maybe I should take some blame in that too, because I remember in the heat of it, when all of us who have any access to any mayor are being inundated by everybody who doesn't feel they do, I felt compelled to text you as this was going, and I remember we had some text exchanges, and it seemed as though the original sensible, principled position of let's turn this into a bigger opportunity for the city by locating it near downtown, etc. As the rancor grew and as the rhetoric grew, and it seemed as though we were becoming a national embarrassment. And I remember, I think a turning point for me was when my uncle, who's in the Skiing Hall of Fame and he's part of the Goodwill Games Committee for years, this successful athlete in his 80s comes to Hamilton and he says, "Explain to me, Laura, how you lose a professional sports team and the city's best brand and the stadium in one foul swoop. I mean, what is this city doing?" So for me, that was like, I sat back and I thought, I'm so sick of this embarrassment,
Well, as it turns out, we weren't going to lose the Tiger Cats. I mean, my sense of it was, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Is a stadium location on the West Harbor a particularly bad idea? All the evidence pointed to everything that they needed was actually enhanced by going there. I still to this day don't understand why they would not play at West Harbor. They've never explained it to me. They've never explained it to the community. And in hindsight, apparently all those things weren't a big issue because we ended up at Ivor Wynn with no parking, no access to a major highway. So all of that was nonsense.
So how did they do it then? Were they playing fair, or did they pull tricks out that?
I didn't think so. I thought they were toying with the emotions of the community, and unfortunately they got to enough people to make the decision to not go to the West Harbor. Mind you, council, so it wasn't just me, by the way. I mean, council on at least 5 occasions said West Harbor's the place. So it wasn't Fred Eisenberger only
but
talking
about the issue. But it was the hill you decided to die on.
Well, and I would do it again, quite frankly, because I still think it's the right thing to do, and we would have got miles more benefit out of that location than any other.
The argument was so polarized between East Mountain and West Harbor, and both of those camps lost. Wouldn't either of those two camps be happier with their enemy than Ivor Wynn? Wouldn't the East Mountain be happier with West Harbor?
Yeah.
And what I'm asking you is, wouldn't have East Mountain been better than Ivor Wynn from a West Harbor perspective?
Absolutely.
So what's sad about
you've got ancillary benefits that come out of going to the west I mean, I don't support the East Mountain location, but
sure, but
it's surely better than
Hold
I
on,
of a first, second, and third
because
choice.
This is an audio cast. I just got to let people know we're not actually pummeling Lauren or Fred. We're in a 150-year-old factory that has to turn its heating on like that.
If it explodes, I'm suing. I can tell you that.
Just so people know we're not beating on.
The benefit on the East Mountain would have been that we would have acquired or had the opportunity to do that Ivor Wynn site, which includes the Scott Park and the whole. I mean, it's a huge chunk of land. The benefit would have been we at least would have been able to do that. So you could have conceded on that location, although it didn't work. I mean, it was too expensive.
If we'd done the West Harbor, and if it had turned into the grand plan that it could have been, the velodrome issue wouldn't even be an issue.
No.
The city would have done everything and anything to make it a real player in the Pan Am Games.
Well, and here's the other issue that we all knew and that was hard to overcome was Infrastructure Ontario. Their numbers were way out of whack.
Yeah,
and so when they started talking about just stadiums in general and how much it was going to cost, that threw a lot of people out of the game. When they started talking about $200 million as opposed to, I think, I don't know where we're at now, 135 million or something, and they were talking about only getting a half a stadium, that's a difficult hurdle to overcome. As it turns out, none of that was accurate, and we're getting a stadium at a reasonable cost, many hundreds of millions of dollars.
Explain that to me, because if there's one question I get now, it's, I don't understand the numbers around Ivor Wynne. This whole discussion about what it would cost to retrofit the stadium, and now we're getting parts of it new for less. Like, what's with the math?
Easy. The math was wrong. They were lying.
Well, there's a difference between the math wrong and lying. So who was lying, Infrastructure Ontario or the Ticats?
Approach is all about being on time and on budget, and to do that, they had a 30 or 40% premium to get it done. But we never got to the point of getting to accurate numbers on the stadium location up until like very recently, and I think that was a failure on their part, the Pan Am folks' part, who weren't particularly helpful.
But it did become the ballot issue in the election. There's just no doubt about that.
I guess it
did. And that's when I made the comment, it was the hill you decided to die on.
Yes.
Because when the tide turned against you sort of midsummer, when even councillors were bending to the pressure, when it was becoming dueling op-eds, dueling editorials with you and Bob Young, you could feel the tide change. And people started to see it as a dysfunctional and capable leadership issue with you. I mean, that's how it started to come up. I think I might have even blogged it at the time.
Look, I mean, if leadership is about having vision and aspiring to do multiple things with one stadium location or whatever it is, then, I'm guilty. I couldn't have done it any other way. I mean, for me, it was planning 101. It's really basic, elemental, planning that talks about leveraging the opportunity and doing brownfields and putting it in a location that you can get multiple benefit out of. So, it's rudimentary. There could have been a time when we could have come to some accommodation, like another location, but they had us. Had city kind of hopping around the entire city looking for locations, anything but the West Harbour location, which was
I'll never forget. And I don't know about you guys over there, Martinus. Maybe you, Martinus Gillis is here as well. You remember that image that came up? I'm assuming you're a West Harbour supporter, but I could be wrong.
No, I was.
I don't want to interrupt your Heineken. But don't you remember that image when it first came out, the view from the stadium of the harbour? And I remember that picture, and Graham too, right? Guys, use the mic. I remember thinking, that moves me. That was a vision. I'm all for the industrial park, the Glanbrook Park, and the Red Hill being used effectively, and if that helps the airport and Carmen's and all that up on the mountain, that's fine. But this was better.
Yeah. So, and look, I mean, I couldn't argue it any other way. I still see it that way. I think we're making a fundamental mistake doing it at Ivor Wynne. We're losing, bundles of opportunities as a result of that. And you know what? What's the spillover benefit that we're going to get out of the Ivor Wynne being renewed? Tell me what it is.
Ward 3 has a shiny new toy from the shitty one that it used to have.
And, the neighbors are still going to have people parking in their backyard, so maybe that's a benefit.
But don't you think the damage, though, Lauren, to the brand of the Ticats? I was a Ticat season ticket holder. They asked me to be on the Black and Gold Club. I was on that for a while. I was meant to be a patron of the sport, and I can't bring myself to buy season's tickets again. Maybe I will when my son's or my daughter's a little older, but I'm mad about it. I'm mad about the way the whole thing, and forgetting about your position, your stated position or theirs. And I've told the story maybe too many times, but one time I was at doing the Michael Corrin show at CTS, and they had this broadcaster in from a big Toronto sports radio show, a big morning show, and he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Hamilton." He goes, "I am going to beat the shit out of you guys every morning on my show because of this idiotic Pan Am thing." And I just remember thinking, we're like giving grist to the mill of mockery with this thing. So aside from a position on it, which I supported West Harbour, but aside from that, it's what it did to us nationally that really pains me.
See, and I supported Sam Marula, that my municipality doesn't need to subsidize billionaires. You want a stadium? Where you want it, then build it, fucker, build it.
So why did we follow?
Well, so, I mean, that's kind of a fundamental question, isn't it? Yeah. Whose stadium is it? Who's actually going to pay for it? Taxpayers' money, the lion's share.
You don't get an opinion unless you write the check, and he's not writing the check.
No, so if he'd have
Bob
come...
said he's not a billionaire, he's a multi-millionaire, and he's the caretaker. Don't forget that line.
And so, to remind, I mean, if he'd come to me and said, look, I want to build a stadium, and I want to do it with my money, and I want to be able to pick the location, I say, marvelous. Let me help you.
Go nuts.
Let's go and find that site for you, and let's make good use of it. The majority use, by the way, is still the city of Hamilton. 10 games a year, 10 games.
Yeah.
And after that, City of Hamilton,
Don't forget the
football
money-making lingerie
clubs,
football club. Don't forget that, the $50,000 subsidy
yeah,
or
well,
whatever.
no, that
Can you imagine
That
that
wasn't
didn't
the
happen?
Niagara Wind, that was the Cubs.
That's
If the
Heckfire,
majority of the
that's right.
public had
My
known
bad.
that might not have happened in that location.
Okay, so in hindsight,
Yeah.
was it an error to purchase the brownfield properties?
No.
So
I
what are we
don't-
doing with them?
Well, I think we have an opportunity to do something. In the absence of ownership, and you know what, brownfields, you always have to consolidate these things. You can't do them piecemeal. So you need a substantial chunk of property that
But
you
there's
can.
no plan there.
No, there isn't a plan. I mean, tell me about it. I mean, it would be nice if there was. But my argument would have been, what else are you going to do with this in the absence of a stadium, which is actually a lower remediation cost and a higher value in terms of what you end up using it for.
So, Fred,
So
let me-
it's going to be very difficult to use that property. But you know what? Something's got to happen there.
Something
Something's gotta
has to happen. It's such a prime piece of,
But
it's
it
such a
can't,
prime
the
spot.
sad part is, it can't be a residential site now
Mm-hmm.
because the remediation costs are so high. It'll never be that.
Yeah, go ahead. Use your mic there if you can.
Back a little bit about the Tiger Cat.
Can you just pull
You know, I'm biased. I really supported Fred Eisenberger and his mayoralty. I thought that he was very strong on the issue. But where they fell apart was not the mayor. It shouldn't have been the hill he died on. It was council. Everyone, you go on the streets, everyone agrees West Harbor was the best spot. And like Lauren says, we shouldn't be, subsidizing billionaires for 8 games a year. And, they got nothing what they wanted. But council was too worried about the people in front of them instead of, the greater scheme of things.
Yeah, well, and they certainly let me run with it. So you know what? They were
sacrificial
yeah.
lamb.
We support you, Fred.
Yeah, that's right. They were behind me with the door closed and
It's like,
Yeah.
here's the
peeking
plank,
through the
and
door
by the
saying,
way-
"Let me know when you've got it sorted out."
So let me ask you this though, because you bring up an excellent question. There were campaigns that said throw the bums out, anything but council, right? There were some people, Scott Thompson, I think, was pushing this anything but council campaign, and poor Graham Crawford's got a sore throat tonight because I'm going to try to pick up your body language for us, Graham, but you're nodding emphatically. There were people who said throw the bums out. Now we know to jettison long-term entrenched Hamilton councillors and their little fiefdoms is almost impossible. Hence the 20 people like Martinus running for Ward 2. But that it was an open run, everyone went for it, because you're never going to get the established candidates out of there. It's never going to happen, right? So they are survivors politically. You had a principled position on this, and you were willing to climb up that hill on your own. Now, I don't think to your point, Jim, I don't think you can be faulted for that. I think people look back and say, he was probably right on that, sucked to be him, but
I
he
get
paid
that
the
a
price.
lot now in hindsight, right?
When you're the leader,
Yeah, that's right.
you're the one that has to fall on the sword. But
No.
I'm upset with
No way.
with council. They should have supported him. They know it was the right thing.
Why do
but
I
they were
want
worried
my
about the
mayor to
protest.
be principled and no longer my mayor? Like,
What are you saying there,
Well, see,
Lorenzo?
I get often from people that, and this is ironic because people always argue for you want an honest politician,
Yeah.
and say, well, you're too honest for this game. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't have put yourself out there that far on the issue. You should have let it all kind of dangle out there and let somebody else run
Well,
with
your
it.
political survival skills were not showing themselves,
Well,
right?
so and if politics is all about staying no matter
Right,
what, then
right.
I'm a lousy politician. My issue is let's get something done here that's going to improve our city and make it better.
No, I'm
and
not-
if
I'm
and if
not-
I can't do that and people judge me on that, well, fine. I'm
I
okay
agree
with
with
that.
you. I'm not saying you're a lousy politician, but what I'm saying is what we attribute to be political skills,
Right.
the ability to always make everyone in front of you feel like you're agreeing with them and doing whatever is popular, those were not your traits, right?
but a vision
Well, no,
without
not
winning
in
an
all
election.
cases, I have to say. I mean, I thought, I'm a politician. I mean, I've been at this a while, so I've
Yeah,
not.
but you never
I've not.
struck me as the guy who would say what I wanted you to say just because you were standing in
No,
front of
and
me.
I wouldn't do that in all cases, but I didn't. I wouldn't throw my principles away, but I would certainly look for the common ground. I mean,
Sure.
I'm a compromiser. I want people to work together. I'm all about team building. But when you get a dysfunctional team and you get someone else out there that's kind of poking holes in everything you do and seemingly getting away with it on the stadium debate issue,
So let me ask
that's
you
a
this
hard
question,
thing to deal with.
because it came up in the last Laircast, and if you don't
Yeah.
want to weigh in, I completely appreciate that. But because we've raised it, when we had Mayor Bettina in here, and this is prior to the big, massive kerfuffle that happened over the holidays, but it was after the op-ed exchange that you and he had done when you decided to set the record straight, which was an unusual step for a former mayor. So you wrote your op-ed, he was in here shortly thereafter, and we started talking a little bit about the council years. And you came up, and I made the comment about the fact that you had decided to pass around the mantle of leadership, if you recall, right? You said dysfunctional council. At one point you said, if you guys want to chair, you guys get a turn at chairing, which I always thought was giving away a little bit of the control of the agenda, and I couldn't get why you did that. But he made a comment during the Laircast that suggested that some of it, he said, I think you remember, his assertion was there's more decorum on council than past council, and I said, well, you're the guy who threw the pen, and he said, well, I threw the pen because of the leadership of the day kind of thing. And I got Pillory.
Freddie made me do it.
And Freddie made me do it. And I think was it Graham Crawford that came up with this cartoon? He did this cartoon about it. And I got, of course, pilloried for not challenging him on that. But I try to let my guests speak their mind without. I'm not trying to play judge here. You have the opportunity, because it was said here in this forum, to respond. I know you told me you didn't want to, and I'm not going to push you on it. But since you and I initially booked this Laircast, there has been everything else that's gone on coming out of the city. Is it as functional as the city council would let us believe?
There's a characterization that when I was there, it was dysfunctional. 95% of the time, it was fine. But when you're putting aggressive things on the agenda, that causes debate. And debate gets sometimes picked up by the media as kind of animosity and angst and all kinds of things on council. We had a good working relationship, to be honest. I never really felt that we were at odds. I spent an awful lot of time, because of my background and my knowledge of all the people there, kind of working with all members of council to kind of come up with conclusions. In fact, the most difficult person to deal with through my term as mayor was actually Bob Bertina.
Stop.
I was going to say no, but then
there's your catch line for the day. It's
what you
true.
heard there was a whole bunch of people going,
I'm probably not saying anything that you don't know, and most members of council would know that as well. And I think some of that is now becoming self-evident.
Well,
it's unfortunate. I want my city to do well.
Yeah.
I think it will, despite what's going on.
Stop there. If you, as a former mayor, want to be a productive resource as a former mayor, what was the point of bitch slapping Mayor Bob around with that op-ed?
Oh, I wasn't doing that.
That's not a pointed question. I just didn't get it.
No, I know. Well, for one, I have lots of folks in the community that did support me, and I was getting leaned on quite heavily by a lot of them, including my office staff, when they hear things that aren't true and accurate. And I held off for the better part of a year until I got to an event in Ancaster where it was just in my face, and I thought, well, that's enough. So I don't think it's inappropriate. I haven't stopped having opinions, and I think I have the right as a former mayor to at least express that in a very judicious, calm, and reasonable way. And I didn't bitch slap anybody. I just set the record. I set the record. Well, it wasn't hurtful either. You know what? Politics is a thick-skinned kind of game, and you're apt to get criticized. And just because some of the criticism came from me, shouldn't be an issue.
You know what's interesting about it, though? Just looking at it from let's say, a media perspective, just on the mechanics of it. Yes, former mayors have weighed in. Certainly Deanne speaks his mind. He has here in the Laircast. He does, cocktails.
Larry kind of weighed in full time for about 4 years. I read them all. So don't be telling me that I'm the first guy that's ever written something negative. I can get you a list of blogs that he put out, and they were, painfully critical. By the way, I like Larry Deanne. He and Janet, my wife and I, are having dinner.
Larry told me that the other day when
which,
you were coming in.
And I have
taster.
You guys are all BFFs.
I have no personal. That's right. I have no personal issues with Larry or Janet. I think they're nice
Larry
people.
wanted to run again.
Politically, I have some issues with what
and
Larry
he had his
does.
sights on the job, clearly, because he ran.
Sure.
But Larry's machinations in the background on different blogs and stuff are not quite the same as a Saturday op-ed space in the Hamilton Spectator. You took an extraordinary move to set a record straight.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I think people in politics have to be honest and genuine, and they have to be truthful about what's occurred in the past, and hopefully be truthful of what's going to occur in the future. And that if that doesn't happen, I think there's an appropriateness to setting the record straight, and that's all I was trying to do.
So you set the record
And you know what?
straight.
I could have said a lot more, but
What's that?
we don't need to do that. So I could have said a lot more, but I didn't need to do that.
Well, if you had said more, it would have tarnished you with the same brush, right?
Right.
I mean, there's, and this is a difficulty that we have talked about here, and I talked about when they were here, is that you mentioned that Bob was the most difficult councillor during your time. And as mayor, you said some of those personality traits, I'm paraphrasing you, have become self-evident. I did a blog just today that said, it's a new year, let's try a reboot. Let's get out of the Nixon, everyone's my enemy, and let's get into everyone in the city wants Hamilton to succeed, bar none. That's it. That's our end result, right? You can be a detractor of the current mayor, but it doesn't mean that we don't all want the city to do better. And the mayor is the key piece to that, right?
Right. And so I'm not a detractor of the mayor.
Yeah.
He's got the position, and I want him to do it well. And I mean, I'm not the great sage that knows how to do it well, but I certainly have a sense of when it's not being properly performed. And I'm not the judge of this. Others will be the judge. And
But you made the comment that it's unfortunate that some of these things are coming out now, that they're becoming self-evident.
I think it's very unfortunate. And you know what? I think partly, the original claim that I can do this without any staff is part of the problem. I think, there's a mayor's budget for a reason. There's lots of work to do. You need help and advice, and you need counsel from lots of people. And you need people to do some of the nitty-gritty kind of communications work and give you some advice on how to best position things.
Hallelujah.
And, I did that. I think it's important to do. Saving money in the mayor's office budget isn't the highest priority in the municipality. There's other areas where you can save money. I'm concerned about it, and the same thing's happening in Toronto, and I get to witness it over there while it's happening.
Sure.
That this drive towards zero is completely irrational. And I know that there's, the public out there wants to hear, don't give me a tax increase. Go find savings.
The difference with Rob Ford, though,
Go find
is that
savings somewhere else.
Rob campaigned on Stop the Gravy Train. He was 100% clear about how he would play once he got into office. And he has played that way, and the people who opposed him but didn't come out and vote against him are now trying to get him after the fact, right? I have sympathy for them, but he won with a sweeping majority, and he was super clear about what he said. The guy delivered. You've got Bob Bertina he ran on a kind of a common sensey, folksy thing, but he did not run on, I'm going to cut my mayor's budget in half for the sake of frugality. And when they were here in the Laircast, I said to them, why don't you spend some of that remaining $500,000 on communication support? And the response from Peggy, who jumped into the conversation of her own will, was, well then, it's all going to come through me anyway, then we have to delegate, then we have to share, you were here, Lauren. It was this idea that more people around us creates more work, more effort, more discussion. I can get that as a control freak, but it's not feasible, it's not functional, it's not pragmatic in a city of this size.
No, it's not, and I think it's reasonable to have a communications director, singular and solely. You need a political operative that can connect with Ottawa and Toronto.
The guy would, if Mike were working in their office, he would not have let half this stuff go out the door.
And so it's political judgment. It's having the appropriate people do the groundwork that needs to be done in terms of connecting with community. I mean, there's so much to do.
Yeah.
You can't do it with 2 or 3 people. It's just not possible.
Before you were mayor, you'd never been mayor.
What's that?
Before you were mayor, you'd never been mayor.
No.
Did Larry assist?
Other than his blogs.
Assist me?
No, I mean,
Initially?
actually helping you set up an office, be
With the transition,
be an
was
ear
he-
for you, be of some sort of counsel.
Generally, no.
Well,
I mean,
the
Larry,
follow-up question is,
you
would
know.
you be that for Bob?
Well, of course I would. Of course. I mean, if the mayor calls and wants me to, impart some advice to him or make some suggestions about how it could be better, I'm there.
And I don't mean to sound cynical, because I really am hopeful. But given the op-ed decision that you made, the odds of that maybe not too high?
Well,
I mean,
look,
you positioned
you know what?
yourself as the record setter
That
straight.
article was
as
very
a-
unfred-like.
As
It
a
was
mayor,
unfair.
you need to work with everybody.
Yeah.
And, I worked with many people that I didn't care for, I didn't think were, people that I want to
That was
deal
you.
with.
You said
What
about you.
names?
And you
Said about
you
at the
have to
festival.
deal with them anyway. So
Yeah.
you've got what you've got, and you got to make the best out of the resources
So
that you
how?
have.
So if he does not call you for advice, but since we're in the conversation and you're here, I think it's germane. How would you advise him to crawl out of Peggygate,
I
etc.
think the issue is about his staffing in his office. I think
Yeah.
that's the issue. If he gets the right people in the office that understand the position that they need to be in, he can get some good advice, and they can think about the things that in advance before they become issues to try and head them off. I think that's critically important. I think he'd do himself a favor if he actually staffed up to an appropriate level.
Now, I always thought that it was a misnomer to call it Peggygate. It was mayor gives a staffer a salary increase that's unpopular gate, which isn't nearly as sexy. But it really, I mean, as much as Peggy accepted the raise, it was his to give it to her, and it was his explanation of how it came about that caused the uproar. So I always thought it was a little sexist that we hung it on her, and she wears it. I mean, she's getting abused in public when she goes out. People are saying she should return it. That's her only way out of it. You're saying he needs to fill out his staffing. But there are those who are close, Lauren, who would suggest that, he won't live without Peggy for the duration of the term. She's in there to stay. So is it just about buttressing some of her skill set with other people who can help? Or does she need help?
I'll go back to just get some appropriate staff that know the job and know what needs to happen. I mean, it might be 6 months before you. It took me a year to get the right team in place.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always work out. So we had a couple of communications people come and go. Well,
But your turnover wasn't scandalous.
No, and
Well, he wasn't
but
giving out
it's all
33%
difficult, and you know what? It adds another layer of difficulty to the mayor's position, where you have to oversee this staffing group. But if you get the right people, it's done for you. So I had great staff. I mean, I had spectacular staff.
But at the end of the day, no,
Yes.
At the end.
Well, in
Trina's
the last 2 years.
Trina's amazing.
2 years. For sure.
But here's the thing, though. The buck stops with the leader, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I hear one more mayor tell me, Larry, that, people need to get good advisors around them, blah, blah, you know what? You take the decisions from the staff that you hire. At the end of the day, you make it, and I'm not saying Larry was weighing in on this, but just generally, I hear that a lot, right? It's that, they had bad advisors, they got the wrong people around them. At the end of the day, the person who makes the decision is the mayor. Right? Mayor is the chief. You're the chef. You're the top dog. Yep. So deciding to give a raise, or deciding to do this, or deciding to do that, or deciding to treat the media a certain way, he might have the advice of someone that people think isn't giving him good advice, but at the end of the day, he's making those choices.
Absolutely. So I'm not. Even that's exactly right. Bob will make his decisions based on what he thinks ultimately has to be the right path to take, and you have to live by it. So you know what? He can continue to do what he's doing, or he can make adjustments, or he can get more staff. Yeah. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's you that's going to be held accountable for whatever happens.
Larry's lost 27 elections in a row now. So we can all assume he's done.
Oh, don't say that about Larry. He's rolling over right
come
now.
on.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Janet would kill him.
If
Come
he sees a
on.
window, he's going for it. Oh,
Please. But the question
And
is,
he looks really cool in that vest. But
yeah,
don't
no,
you
that
think?
vest is
yeah,
not
really.
working for him.
Yeah,
I don't care what mileage.
He cracks me up when I see it.
any aspirations
You and everybody
beyond,
else.
Any aspirations?
beyond the think tank to come back to a world of politics?
You know what? I mean, I'm a bit of a political animal, so my head says heck no, but my heart would say something different, I think. So I don't know. I completely understand where Larry was last time. I mean, you have this, an aspiration to do a couple of terms, which is what I had. And you have things on the go that you want to fulfill and complete and see through. So there's this sense of unfinished business, for sure. Now, whether that translates into a run next time, who knows? Because it's 3 years from now, or 2 years, or whatever it is.
It's interesting you say that, though, because Larry's sense of unfinished business was ferocious, right? Like he was, I think, spending a lot of his lunch hours trying to figure out a way to get that back. It's true. But Mayor Bertina it's true, I was at one of those. But Mayor Bertina just said in an article with the Hamiltonian, they did a Q&A where he had a chance to write it. The response that was written said, "I won't be mayor for long. I was given 4 years." I mean, I read every post that everybody made after that. There's no, and Graham, you read the same. Graham actually highlighted me to the article. When you read that comment from him, could you read it any other way than he's saying, "I'm not doing another run. I'm sick of this thing"?
Changed their minds 3 years
I'm just
down
saying.
the road.
I've never seen a mayor say that like that.
Well,
What was your thought?
Just remember, it's the same guy who said yes to West Harbor.
Yeah.
So he flips, he changes.
Okay.
Maybe he's serious. Right now, I don't disbelieve him. But 3 years from now, who knows?
But that was a surprise to me for somebody a year into their mandate to say, I won't be here for long. I was given 4 years, kind of shut up and leave me alone.
Yeah, so I mean, based on what's happened, and I sense that there's not a lot of council support for working with Bob for
Yeah.
Whatever reason.
You sensed that, or you read it on the front page for a
No,
month and a
well, I mean, I talk to the councillors. We do communicate once in a while. I see them all as friends, or most all of them as friends, and
Yeah.
we talk. And there's issues there, and they're going to be hard to overcome. But you know what? I can fully understand on a personal level how difficult this is for Bob. So you get the position. Maybe he was surprised to get it. I don't know. But the reality is he's got it, and now he has to deal with it. And it has not been, a bucket of fun, I can imagine. And it's hard to get out there and keep going when you're continuously, leaned on for. Whether it's his fault or not his fault doesn't really matter. I mean, on a personal level, this is very, very difficult.
Well, the New Year's levy.
And very, very public.
The New Year's levy, as Lauren has argued with me many times, was canceled because of holiday plans, and the mayor needed a holiday. It's all good. But not having the rescheduled date made it look as though he, in the midst of all of this onslaught, didn't want to go out there and shake hands and explain. Could have just been another communications misstep, and that's the painful part about this, right? I saw, when I posted the blog today, a lot of people commented, and they say, we all want him to be the mayor we thought when we elected him. We all think he's a good guy, loves the city. Nobody knows Peggy either way. They don't really care. They just want the city to get back on track.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think the city's off track. So the good news from my perspective is that, and this will sound a little self-serving, but I think we did some good things in the 4 years that we were there collectively. And for me, it's always team. So my council team and my city management team, I did a particularly good job of putting lots of things on the agenda that put the city in a position to be successful.
Do you think your leadership style would be welcomed if you came back to council in 3 years?
I don't know. I mean, there'll be a lineup of people running for council next time, I'm pretty sure.
Martinez, are you running for council again?
You know what? And I'm.
No, you're not going to do it again? Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit.
You know what? No. I can fully understand someone that is running a business. I mean, I think Martinez and I talked about this. I think, if you're running a business and you aspire to have that business be successful, going on council is a business killer. Yeah. You're going to put all of your time and effort into that, and you're going to lose what you've created. I mean, talk to Sophia Angelonides right now. She had a great tzatziki sauce business. Actually, it was growing in leaps and bounds. It's gone.
Yeah, but we miss it. We miss
It's gone.
She would drop it off at our door all the time.
Sauce is delicious.
Yeah, it was delicious. Yeah.
First one, how did the joke
But
go?
she's handling it like a champ, though.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you've got a great gig in Toronto.
Yeah.
You really did. You landed softly.
I did. I
You're,
did.
you're,
I was
you're
very
working.
fortunate.
You're working within your passion. You're dealing on a level where people respect your abilities and your principles. All in all, nice ending out of the mayor's job for Fred Eisenberger.
Yeah.
And yet, after everything we've talked about and all of how Pan Am went so horribly awry in spite of everything, you are still considering dipping your toe back in. I find that fascinating.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned to you, I mean, it's you have a passion for the city, and you have you have a desire to make a difference, and you have this notion of unfinished business. I'm not saying yes, but if the circumstances were different than they are today, if I'm not at CUI for whatever reason, or then
Is the funding stable beyond the next 3 years?
for CUI,
For your gig at present?
funding's okay. It's not a problem.
Well, Harper doesn't like think tanks that aren't conservative think tanks.
You're conservative.
Right?
See, you are a Chino. You are totally. You just sold Harper
I'm
out.
just speaking the
Isn't that
truth.
right, Jim? He's such a fake
What are
conservative.
you talking about? Maybe I'm saying that what Fred does is bullshit. Look at it from that perspective. No, but Harper's shutting down operations like you with this majority.
I don't think so, because we do a lot of international development work that's sponsored and supported by
But you are
by the
wholly
conservative.
federally funded, yes?
No. We're funded by CETA programs that you bid for, and then the domestic stuff is all local contracts with
So you're
municipalities.
not basing your possible reentry into Hamilton politics on anything to do with your current job stability.
No.
So
It's just passion and desire.
you brought up
that's
Sophia Angelonides, and she's Greek, of course. And there's something called the Athenian pulse, where the blood of ancient Athens runs through your veins. You can't help but be committed to your community and to local politics, right? It's like when somebody tried to tell me a couple of years ago that Sheila Copps was done with politics. Clearly, she's not. She's he's back trying to run the Liberal Party. So I'm fascinated, Fred, that you'd consider coming back in some form or another to Hamilton.
Well,
I'm really glad we had this chat.
I live in Hamilton, and I'm not moving from Hamilton. Don't plan to. I'm not going to live in Toronto. Hamilton's my town, and I love it and care about it and want it to do well. I've had the opportunity to have some impact in that over the last not just 4 years, but the last 20 years. And you know, there's just this. It's hard to replace the level of engagement that you get in a political realm. I mean, you know, it's an all-consuming kind of thing, and when you're in it, I mean, I don't want to repeat the year I had, you know, before I left. I mean, that was probably the most difficult, you know, year of my life, to be honest with you. Having said that, it is still, you know, a lesson in what should you do politically to stand up for certain things that are important for a city. I wish more politicians would do that, quite frankly. Not that I'm martyring myself, but I think there's too many politicians that are saying things just to stay in office as opposed to what they really think. If we had more aspirational, visionary leaders that didn't care so much about re-election, but care more about the future of the city and how it would transform itself.
Council colleagues who shut the door and let you walk the plank by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't an unelected vision no vision at all?
Ooh.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So
you can't do.
There's got to be some balance.
Not entirely true. I mean, you know, where I am now, it's a position of some influence with municipalities, and with the municipalities in other countries. So you know, you gauge your level of impact. What we're able to do is help other cities and other municipalities on some of the very same issues that we talked about today, in terms of where do you put a stadium and how do you leverage transit investment and LRT.
Aren't you suggesting, though, Fred, if I'm hearing you, that, and maybe I'm just projecting here, but there's a difference between being in a job like the one that you currently have, where you are affecting those kind of things that you stood on principle for in Hamilton, and being in the cut and thrust, the 250 things you've got to show up at over the course of the week, the BlackBerry going off constantly, scandal at the door, 16 media requests lined up. I mean, you can't possibly be getting that kind of action in your current job.
Wonderful.
Why do I like that?
But why do you? Is the question.
Well,
you do, clearly.
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I mean, I can't put my finger on it. It's just dynamic, and it's exciting every day. And, you know, and I didn't ever have a day, maybe a few days through the stadium piece, where I, you know, didn't want to go in and engage with these issues. I mean, it's invigorating on a personal level, and it's also invigorating for, you know, the team and the team that you work with.
So here's where I'm going with this. If Larry, who I will never believe is completely signed off on being invigorated, and
no one will ever write him another check. That's why Larry's done.
And no.
Janet will not be happy to hear that.
Right, yeah, but you know what? So if Larry is still interested in invigoration, and Fred is, and Bob decides to do a flip-flop and decides that he's not out of the game, could we have a rematch? Is what I'm getting.
Aldi Fraser 2.
No, that's not very likely.
Okay, in that case, Martis, you're running for mayor this time, not Ward 2.
So you know what? As I'm saying this now, you know, maybe common sense will prevail, and my wife will get to me and say, not over my dead body, and it may
your
never
wife
happen.
should have always run for mayor too. She's got the chops for it. She's got the personality for it. She's awesome.
Oh yeah, she's got the personality for sure. I mean, she's a lot more engaging and outgoing than I am. She wouldn't. She'd never want to deal with the issues the way that we had to deal with the issues. My whole family, you know, was just aghast on you know, what we ended up going through for the better part of a year. And you know, obviously on the same side, I mean, they're passionate about some of the things that I was talking about. So they'll probably be coaching me to say, you know, you're an idiot. Don't you think about doing anything stupid.
You would not be the last or first politician in history whose family said you're an idiot, and then they went and signed up the nomination for it.
I know. So you know what? There's nothing. So it's an emotional issue. Obviously, it's not a logical one, and you know what? We'll see what two or 3 years looks like.
Passion, vision, those are important, and it's been a fascinating conversation, Fred. I'm so glad you took our offer. Like I said, we didn't plan to have all the mayors in the Lair chair, and it just seems to turn out that way. But since, as you said, it's an invigorating job, and there's no greater level of engagement municipally than in the mayor's chair. I think that's why we're so drawn to it here in the Laircast. So you've been great. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks. It was a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
I
And
appreciate
we've
it.
had a lot of people join our studio audience
And
since you started talking. They've been very polite.
Yeah.
Usually we get more heckling. But I think that speaks to the fact that you said you may not be the sage, but I think people think you're pretty sage.
Plus, Marvin Calvin's not here.
Yeah,
so-
Marvin Calvin's not here to heckle.
Is Marvin coming to this?
He came once.
Yeah,
Yeah? And heckle?
well, the broadcast pretty much took place from his mic.
Oh,
Yeah,
no kidding.
he
Yeah,
tried
really,
to
yeah.
he tried to take on Mayor Bettina about how he treated city staff.
Now, Marvin wanted to run last time. Did you
He
know that?
did.
Yeah,
He did. And then he ran in Ward
really
2
kind of
against
trolled around
Marvin.
But he
with
did.
that.
Yeah.
He ran in Ward 2.
Yeah,
Well, he did, yeah, but he wanted to run for mayor.
Yeah, no, he did. He came in what, 5th, Ward 2?
7th,
7th, 19. Oh, I feel another lawsuit coming from that. We'll leave that.
No CRTC on the Lair.
Yeah, really.
He's not going to file
Yeah.
another complaint against me.
Yeah,
What did
yeah.
I say that out loud? Okay.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Have another Heineken and listen to our
Yep.
next guest and give your
Yep,
throat a break.
I will.
Thanks, everybody.
you.
Good job. Thank you.
Chats in the Lair is a Power Group production. Visit us at powergroup.ca or laircast.com, or check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.